Alright, next one on our monster list is Frankenstein. Now, Frankenstein, I know, is coming soon. How soon, we don't know, but yes, James Wan's Frankenstein is probably the next one in line for the new Universal monsters. So, this pitch is going to be interesting, and why I kind of waited a bit to do it. It wasn't like, this is the next one. It was obviously not right out the gate, because I wanted to think about this one, because obviously this is going to be a reality soon at some point. Knock on wood. So yeah. So keep in mind, my idea is probably a lot different from whatever James Wan has. So, my idea for a Frankenstein movie is a little unorthodox. It's a little different. In here, this movie would be set in the past. This would be a period piece horror movie. But now, and you're already probably rolling your eyes, oh great, here we go, another story of Frankenstein building the monster. Actually, no. You would have Victor Frankenstein, you would have the monster, but this movie would not be about them. You see, we've had movies about Victor building the monster, and other movies of the monster's point of view. But we've never had a third party's perspective on the film. And I'd really like to do a film of a straight-up horror film that focuses on the villagers in town. In the town that's close to Castle Frankenstein, as Victor is building his monster. So my idea would focus on one guy, on a carpenter, a local carpenter. And you may be thinking, not an inspector or whatever. Well, I'll get to why I picked a carpenter very soon. The carpenter is basically out there in the woods, helping to build stuff for the other villagers. But lately in the village, there's been something weird going on. There's been something very strange occurring. There's been a series of grave robbings, and the robberies have been predicated to the cemetery. And every night, what basically happens is that every night, a new body gets exhumed and parts are taken. Not the whole body, but parts of the body are taken. And among those are the carpenter's wife. The carpenter's wife had recently died, I'd say about less than a month ago. So the loss of his wife is very new. It's a new feeling, and it's still a fresh wound for him. So when he hears that his wife was among the bodies that had been exhumed and desecrated, he's pissed off. He is pissed off, and he, along with several other villagers, are basically talking to the police. They're like, what the fuck? Can't you catch this guy? Whoever's doing this is sick, and please, you got to do something about it. But as it goes on, there's more story, and the carpenter is kind of slowly being thrown into this kind of world of myths and whatever, because he's trying to figure out the story for himself, because he's like, my wife's body got exhumed and essentially desecrated, and the cops aren't doing shit for it, so I'll do it myself. So he and a couple friends are trying to investigate the goings on of what's going on, and they keep coming back to they keep following the little breadcrumbs here and there back to Victor Frankenstein. And Herr Frankenstein is he's not really an outsider. He is he is a baron. He's known, but he doesn't live near this part of the he doesn't live near this particular village. And he's basically living in this castle, and he's saying, and Victor's like, "Oh, this is my summer home. I purchased this castle to be my summer home, and so I could work in peace." And when the carpenter and his friends are like, "Well, what the hell do you do?" And he's like, "Oh, I study the human body and whatever, and I'm a doctor." and I understand that you've been having a series of grave robbings. My condolences. If you need anything, I will be happy to help you, gentlemen. So yeah. So so everyone else is kind of convinced except the carpenter, who is like, he's a doctor, and he shows up, and no sooner does that happen, the bodies start being taken. What is all that about? So he keeps coming back to it, but the police aren't doing anything because obviously, Herr Frankenstein's a baron. So they're not going to really, they're really slow on investigating him. And as the movie goes on, you follow this kind of fear and paranoia just kind of keep ramping up and up and up throughout the city, because now the monster, during one lightning storm, they see all these lightning strikes hit the town, and as the movie goes on, the monster is out there. And one night when the carpenter's out getting supplies, he leaves his daughter behind. Yeah. It's that daughter from the movie, from the original movie. So he comes home and sees his daughter dead in the lake. So yes, this carpenter would be a new version of that same character whose daughter Maria was killed. It was that shocking scene, that shocking drowning scene with the Frankenstein monster. So he's now left in the man is totally devastated as a human being. So he is now left in a world of pain and agony, and while this is going on, you've got the monster, I would love to have the monster be like a monster in the shadows, kind of like the shark in Jaws, where you don't really see a lot of him, but when you do, you're like, oh shit, it's him. You are legit like, you're like, oh, it's here, and I'm terrified of it. Because I'd like to have the monster, be scary again. I would like to have the monster be like this just force of nature, like I said, the shark in Jaws, or the, just this kind of creature in the shadows that keeps popping up and showing up every time. Like, it's coming back and it's killing people. And you would have it that there is like kind of like a cover-up, because Frankenstein is obviously, he's got a lot of power and whatnot, and he's trying to keep everything under wraps. But the village is just getting out of control, and it all comes to a head when the mob catches the monster and, proceeds to kill it. And that's when the carpenter slowly realizes, oh, he like sees it in the monster's eyes of, it's not evil, it's just, it's got the mind of a child. But it's too late, because the mob is going crazy, and they think they kill it, like they either think they burn it alive or whatever, and that's the end of the story. Or so you would have, because, yeah, you can't have Frankenstein without the bride, am I right? So, yeah. So this movie obviously would be more of a... I don't know how James Wan is going to go about his version of Frankenstein. Please keep that in mind. What I am saying, though, is that my idea is that it would be more of a, kind of like inspired by The Witch or The Lighthouse, so something very Robert Eggers. Something very Robert Eggers in the sense that it builds more on tension and, the scenery and the ambiance, and kind of like that gothic tone to tell the story. Like, it would be a very low-key horror movie. And that's what kind of Frankenstein is. When you look at that original Boris Karloff movie, you see that it depends more on the tension and the ambiance as much as it does with the storytelling. And that's very much what I'd like to do with this movie. Like I said, the difference being here would be... the difference being here in this movie would be a... it would focus not on Frankenstein or his monster. The monster would be in the story, as would Frankenstein, but the difference is that it would focus on a third party, the people having the effects of these monsters. Because I think that would be really cool. I think that'd be a neat storyline to really play with, is this idea of you follow the people who are affected most by the fallout of this. Again, going back to that horror and social commentary thing of, sometime, more often than not, big people get away with a lot of shit that most people would get arrested for and whatnot, and usually it's their fault for, shit that happens to the little guy. And this would be a great, like, commentary on that without, spelling it out to everybody. So that would be my, that would be my idea. That would be my idea for a Frankenstein movie. I am very interested to see what James Wan can do, but that's just my personal idea for a Frankenstein movie. But like I said, you can't have Frankenstein without his bride. So this movie would have a direct sequel, obviously. And yeah, don't worry, we're going to be talking about that sequel very soon. So until next time, I'm Mr. Multiverse, and I'll see you next time in the multiverse.